WarGames.
People power.
You're struggling on that one, I can hear. Voice is not cooperating today.
That's what John Laurinaitis or Johnny Ace would sound like if he was running out of breath.
It's Mr. Laurinaitis. I'm running out of breath. So, men's war games. We have Roman Reigns, Jimmy and Jey Uso, Sami Zayn, Seth Rollins versus Solo Sikoa, Jacob Fatu, Tama Tonga, Tangaloa, and Bronson Reed. Holy smokes. You go first.
Well, we got Bronson Reed. Then we got the Gorillas of Destiny. And then we got the Fatu cousins versus the Fatu brothers, or twins as it is, with the Anuai cousin, with the Usi fake blood member from Canada, who is now apparently an Arab, Seth Rollins. So, analyzing the pieces, the way I look at a creative process or build up for any match, especially war games, it needs to be set up like a chessboard with the opposing pieces. You need to have all your pieces that's going to move and connect with one another. However, the new bloodline has more, I would say, understanding and acceptance with the 5 members that's there. They are more on board with each other than anything else. This war games match, especially where you have Bronson Reed opposite Seth Rollins in a war games match, I think would be good for the both of them. I think this would be Seth Rollins' second war games, Bronson Reed's first. But looking at it as a whole, you're looking at the star power of that male's war games match. I don't think that it could have been any better scripted, because we always knew from the onset that Survivor Series was going to be a bloodline civil war.
But this is going to be definitely a very good match. We have been anticipating this match since at least WrestleMania, if not longer than that. So this is definitely going to be a damn good match, especially once all 10 of these guys are in the ring and War Games can officially get underway. It's definitely going to be one hell of a match. I would even go as far as to say it's probably going to be as good as their 2022 War Games match, where the OG Bloodline was all together. That was a pretty damn good match. So I'm looking forward to it being just as that damn good. Maybe even better. Now looking at the fact that you've got 2 bloodlines. You've got 2 feuding Samoan tribes here. A newly formed tribe that splintered off the original tribe, and the original tribe all back together again, with the addition of Roman Reigns' former brother, Seth Rollins. So you've got OG Bloodline, and you've got 2/3 of what was the Shield in the ring at the same time. So this is going to be a damn good match. And if you want to really analyze this, like deeply analyze this, Bronson Reed is from New Zealand, and New Zealand is not very far away from Samoa. So you could say that Bronson Reed could pass off as one of the Samoan Polynesian Uzi brothers. You know, it could be that. So this really is bloodline. It's all about blood because you've got the original bloodline, plus you've got Seth Rollins, who was like a brother to Roman. On the other side, you've got the other bloodline, the Usos' younger brother with his Tongan brothers and cousins and Jacob, and then you've got Bronson, who's a Polynesian, basically not that far from Samoa, where the whole thing is happening. This is literally a really on paper, star power, stipulation wise, location, a pay per view name, everything on paper looks pristine and perfect. All that remains now is how they execute it. But coming down to my prediction, this is a tough one. But if I'm going to be honest with myself, based off what happened at the end of Bad Blood, I am almost 100. Oh, I can't say 100% sure, but I'm almost 99.9% sure that The Rock is coming back. The Rock is going to poke a finger in this. Some way, somehow, some form, some fashion, The Rock is going to poke a finger in this. And I don't know how it plays, but I know for a fact, in my heart of hearts, tells me that Rock is going to be on the side of the new Samoans because I feel like The Rock has been the one pulling the strings behind for Solo to take over the Ulafala and bring in the Tongans and all of that. So I think prediction, I think The Rock gets involved, costs the new bloodline, the old bloodline, and the new bloodline is going to stand tall. As much as it doesn't look right, I would love to see the OG bloodline standing tall. If The Rock comes back, it's going to be it's going to be new bloodline for the win if The Rock comes back. If The Rock does not come back during the match, then 100% guaranteed it will be the OG bloodline for the win. So it's a bit of a toss-up for me. So I'm going to base my prediction on the actual what happens in the match. The Rock is the biggest factor here. If he comes back, new bloodline wins. If he doesn't come back, OG bloodline for the win. That is how I'm going to base my prediction on this one.
Well, The Rock is certainly not a far-fetched. Yes, it's not a far-fetched idea, but I honestly, I also think The Rock is behind the new bloodline because judging what happened at the end of Bad Blood, yeah, I think so. But I don't think, I think that we might be building up to a match with Rock and Roman at next year's WrestleMania.
Definitely.
So I don't think it'll be so much as he might interfere in this one. He might interfere after this one or at Saturday night's main event. End the year off on a bad note. You know what? You get what I'm saying? Because if you remember the SmackDown after Crown Jewel, Solo challenged Roman. Actually, Roman challenged Solo to a winner-take-all match. And Solo told him, let's go to war. So WarGames was Solo's idea. Now, Solo, the new bloodline, already has a win over Roman and OG bloodline. Now, if you have a winner-take-all, so is it going to be like how it was with Rock and the bloodline, where you have the final boss and you have the tribal chief? Now, with this, is Roman going to acknowledge Solo? Is Jay, Jimmy, Sammy, and Seth Rollins going to acknowledge Solo? Is Bronson Reed going to acknowledge Solo? See, with this, there's so many moving pieces. There's so many moving pieces in this. And the reason why I bring that up is, if this is a winner-take-all match, right? If this is a winner-take-all match for the one true, to become the one true tribal chief, that means every single person involved will have to acknowledge Solo. So unless you go, we already know Jacob, Fatu, Tamatonga, Tangaloa, they all acknowledge Solo. But does Bronson Reed acknowledge him? Or will Bronson Reed acknowledge him? Will Seth Rollins acknowledge him? Will Jay and Jimmy acknowledge him? Will Sammy acknowledge him? And will Roman acknowledge him? Or will they still continue to be defiant?
See, I don't think, regardless of, you see, they haven't, it's not about total dominance, it's about getting Roman in line more than anything else. Because in the beginning, let's not forget, Solo kicked out Jimmy Uso. Jay was already out of the fold. He didn't want the Usos. He wanted the Tonga, Tamatonga and Tangaloa.
Yes, and then don't forget when Jimmy came back, it was Solo that told Jimmy, at the end of the night, you are going to acknowledge me. So it's not completely about Roman. He wants the entire bloodline, whether it's new or OG, to acknowledge him as a tribal chief.
See, the problem I have with that is, if you wanted Jimmy to acknowledge you, why did you kick him out of the bloodline in the first place? Because in that segment where Jimmy was kicked out, Solo did not ask Jimmy to acknowledge him. They just went on a tear and kicked him out.
See, because at that point in time, Solo needed a fall guy and he needed to eliminate every single piece of the OG bloodline in order to bring his own guys in. And when Jimmy got kicked out, we saw Tamatonga. Now, if there was still one moving piece from the OG bloodline, he couldn't have brought in his own guys. He needed the entire OG bloodline to have been kicked out. That, if you look at it, you're right, Jay was already gone at that point in time. So he didn't have to worry about Jay. Jimmy was the only one there. And the wise man as a counsel. However, when the wise man failed to acknowledge him, that's when he turned on the wise man. Now, Jimmy, you take the wise man out of the equation as if he was never there to begin with. Jimmy, the wise man is not blood family. He's not blood. However, Jimmy is blood and he is an active wrestler. So in that instance, you don't only want the acceptance of the old tribal chief. You want the acceptance of those that he commanded as well.
That would mean the entire army from Survivor Series.
Exactly.
But here's the thing, you mentioned about The Rock. I don't think he comes back at Saturday night's main event. Saturday night main event is just a passerby pay-per-view.
Well,
he has to a Saturday Night Fever. Saturday Night Fever. Saturday night's main event is not a Big Five pay-per-view. Survivor Series, however, is one of the Big Five. So if The Rock doesn't come back here, the only next logical place for Rock to come back is Raw on Netflix on January 6th. That's the only other place I see it happening.
I think that would be it, because it's a new network and you're kicking things off with a turn on Roman, and now you're starting a build up to WrestleMania. I mean, look at this. What happens if Roman Reigns is in the Royal Rumble match and Rock comes in and costs him the match? That could add fuel fire towards that. Now, but But if you're looking at the bloodline where it's 5-on-5, Rock coming back, I don't think has that much of an effect, because even if Roman acknowledges Solo, right? Even if Roman acknowledges Solo, Rock still has to come and kick the living daylights out of Roman. He needs to cement that storyline between him and Roman.
But remember, Royal Rumble this coming year is only happening in February. If you have The Rock coming back in January on the very first Raw, the very first week of January, February is Royal Rumble. How can you drag on The Rock for 1 more month and then have him interfere in the Royal Rumble?
Well, it depends. Just remember, it also depends on The Rock's appearance schedule when he is going to appear. So you look at with Cody and the Bloodline. That dragged on for 2 years.
Yeah, but there was a break in between.
Yes. So this will also be a break in between. This can also be where it has breaks in between, where you have Rock with the Rock coming back and causing this whole, or worsening this whole storyline when it's coming between him and Roman. So you're also giving the people a chance to digest what has happened in the anticipation for the next time. And in that, you're also building your storyline. I mean, let's look at it this way. If I was you, right? Let's think about this. Let's say that we have a Tony Khan mentality, right? Have a Tony Khan mentality. You bring Rock, Roman, one night, one show, bang. Rock attacks Roman. Roman goes off to hospital or whatever and is incapacitated for such time. He's out of action. Then you see Roman coming back, and now all of a sudden there's bang on, there's a feud. Next pay-per-view, there's a grudge match between the two of them. Now it's only one piece of a build-up. Now let's look at the WWE way with Triple H's way. You need a storyline. You need a proper build-up. You need a chapter 1, a chapter 2, a chapter 3. You start your chapter 1 on the first Raw on Netflix, and that chapter continues right until WrestleMania, where in each chapter, you're always leaving the crowd wanting to know more.
Long-term storytelling, long-term booking, that has been the way of the Triple H. We all love it. I like it. But for someone as big as The Rock, he comes back on the first Raw of January, and then we don't see him for 4 weeks.
And mind you, it's not only Triple H. The Rock will also have a say in what happens, because he's on the board of directors. So even if Rock agrees with that in long-term storytelling, then that's what it would be. But if you watch the documentary with the build-up to WrestleMania, look at how instrumental The Rock was in creating this whole villainous image of himself and going out and building Cody into such a light, making him to such a baby face.
True. I think Rock is going to have a very big say in how everything plays out from here, Survivor Series, all the way up until WrestleMania. Because the season between Survivor Series and Mania, that's the big season. That is the season where all the big stars need to come out. Everyone brings their A game. And that's the one where I think we're going to have everything set. That's why I'm saying that if The Rock was to return, he's going to be at Survivor Series. If not Survivor Series, we will not see The Rock until Raw at Netflix. That's the only way.
Best time for him to come back, Raw on Netflix.
Maybe we find out that it's The Rock who told Solo Sikoa to go to war with Roman. Rock has been the one, and Solo has just been a puppet this entire time. So Roman now has to take off the head of the snake. He has to go against the final boss himself.
Exactly.
That's what the end game of this whole thing is. So yeah, I don't know if you mentioned who you think is going to win the actual WarGames match, if we're kind of taking it back to Survivor Series.
Bloodline OG.
Bloodline OG wins. Like for me, the prediction hinges on The Rock. If Rock comes back, New Bloodline wins. If he doesn't come back, OG Bloodline wins. That's where.
Or you could have a turnaround. You could have Rock coming back, costing the New Bloodline the match, and then on the SmackDown afterwards, doing a complete 360 on Roman as they're celebrating, and then he kicks the shit out of Roman. Now it leaves you in between, where you're in suspense as to which side The Rock lies.
I honestly, as much as that would be great and good long-term storytelling, I don't think that's the way it's going to play out. Rock is going to make his allegiance known when he makes his next appearance, and that depends whether he appears at WarGames or if he appears on Netflix on Raw. So
Bloodline OG is going to win. Look, if you're going to have a problem, if you're going to have two matches between Bloodline OG and New Bloodline, and the New Bloodline is going to be 2-0 against Bloodline OG. At least if it's neck and neck with 1-1, one at one pay-per-view, one at another pay-per-view, then you're building up to something else, because none of them would want to settle on a draw.
You know what's funny? I completely forgot that we had a tag team match in Saudi about just 4 weeks back. That's like, that just goes to show you how not only how last minute that match was, but how forgettable it was. For me, probably one of the worst matches of the evening. If we leave out Nia Jax's match, that was probably the worst match of the evening. Was that blood? I don't even recall that match happening. And yes, while it's on record for a storyline, do people really consider that match?
Yeah, they would have. Now they would have to. They would have to, because Solo and Jacob and the New Bloodline, they're already taking the piss out of the Bloodline OG with that. So it's fine.
I actually forgot about that match. I don't consider it. The only OG Bloodline versus New Bloodline match I know is Survivor Series. And now that you mentioned it, because of storyline, maybe OG Bloodline should come out on top, so that at least going into, Saturday night main event and Raw on Netflix, we can have some sort of semblance of a storyline that, you know what, you guys won one, we won one, but the final boss is not happy that we lost, and that's why he's coming back to take control, because Solo dropped the ball. Now Rock has to pick it up.
Because then you're going to have the old tribal chief lost one, the new tribal chief lost one. At that one, the Rock can come back and say that both versions of the bloodline has nothing. He is the final boss, and whatever happens, he will be the final person to say what happens. So there will be no more tribal chief. They all answer to him as the final boss.
And I think that's the way it's going to go. Definitely. Now that I think about it, yeah.
And now, that would be my creative storytelling. method for this whole thing to play out, because you can't have the bloodline versus bloodline ending at Survivor Series. It shouldn't be that way. It needs to carry on, because what needs to happen is the new bloodline needs to introduce The Rock as the person pulling the snakes, pulling the strings, and he's the head of the snake in that in that instance. So if you have that, then you're going to have this thing of Roman is confused as to why The Rock would do this, and then one day on one episode of Raw or SmackDown, wherever he is, he calls out The Rock, and then The Rock just all out flattens him like a steamroller and leaves him lying in the ring. And then now you get Rock going away, Roman coming back. He's still focused on The Rock, so he'll be losing matches in the process, because you'll have The Rock's match music playing in the matches, but no Rock is coming out. So The Rock will be like costing him matches in the process, but he's not actually there. Going to Royal Rumble, Roman would be in the Royal Rumble, and it can be like Roman and Solo that's there as the last two. And then The Rock comes out and throws Roman over the top rope and costs him the Royal Rumble. And in that way, and in that instance, while Solo is celebrating with him, he gives Solo a rock bottom as well, to show that he's not in allegiance with anybody, but he is his own boss. And he doesn't answer to any tribal chief, they answer to him. And that whole segment leads up to WrestleMania, where you have a generational match once in a lifetime, Rock versus Roman.
That part in the beginning where you mentioned the whole Rock's music playing and him not coming out reminded me of WrestleMania 20 with Kane and The Undertaker. For months, The Undertaker was playing mind games with Kane. His music would hit, the fog would start up, but no Undertaker would appear.
Exactly, 2004. That was 2004. And then Undertaker comes back at WrestleMania, and then all the episodes before that, you have Undertaker's music playing, and then on the Titantron, you have a tombstone there, and it says returns at WrestleMania.
Yes, exact same thing. So maybe not as spooky, not exactly the same, but along the same lines of mind games.
Exactly. If I was in charge of a creative process, that's what I would go towards, because I know that will be the most intriguing and getting the most out of that storyline. And in the meantime, with handling this whole situation in that manner, you're killing AEW with the ratings.
AEW is already dead. As far as I'm concerned, they're already dead. There's literally no saving it at this point, unless something drastic happens, and I don't see that happening.
Well, that's how it goes, and that's what my creative process would be like. So we just have to wait and see how it plays out.